Hi folks, and welcome to Poverty Proof, how the rich think differently and how you can train your brain for wealth. Today let's cover a topic that not many people talk about. It's very easy to look at the successful or the rich and to want to emulate what they have. What's much harder is looking at what went on behind the scenes, the struggle, the difficulty in getting there. It turns out that those struggles feel not only lonely, but grueling. Let me give you a practical example. This is from the brand new book, Poverty Proof for Entrepreneurs.
Give yourself permission to think, act, and speak differently. Whenever I teach wealth principles, I begin with this simple observation. Rich means different. The very word implies a departure from the norm. To achieve this differing outcome, you will need to be comfortable thinking, acting, and speaking differently than most people you know. That takes courage. People tend to prefer safety and security to risk. They prefer the certainty of being told what to do and assured that they are on the right track. Can you rise above that? Can you forge out into the mist boldly, with no authority providing report cards along the way? That is what entrepreneurship feels like. When I was 16 years old, our high school business economics teacher gave us a class test, but Mr. McAvoy did something sneaky. For the entire semester, he had been teaching a certain idea as part of the syllabus. When he handed out the tests, I saw something odd in the phrasing of the question. He had asked it in the negative. At a quick glance, it sounded like he was asking us to describe everything we had been learning in all that time, which was precisely what we all expected. But if you read the wording carefully, it was really asking the exact opposite. Say, for instance, we had been learning about the 15 qualities of a startup business. The question read something like this. Every startup business has 15 qualities. List the 15 qualities a startup needs to avoid and explain each. I sat and puzzled over the wording, growing increasingly insecure. After months of learning these 15 ideas, it seemed absurd to ask for what the ideas were not. And yet, no matter how many times I read the question, that was clearly what was being asked. So I stepped out into what felt like an emotional abyss. I completely made up 15 qualities that didn't work and wrote my entire essay on them. I agonized over this decision. I had to spend 2 hours forging ahead in this fashion. But ultimately, I believed I could justify my reverse answer. It was correct, despite my misgivings and the feelings of pressure. When Mr. McAvoy told us to put down our pens, I remember the knot in my stomach, the cold sweat on my skin. The next day, a rather smug Mr. McAvoy announced to the class, "Everyone failed this test." He then paused for a seemingly endless moment, then added, "Except for Douglas, who got full marks." I tell this story not to brag about my magnificent powers of intellectual independence. I tell it because the event impressed upon me how unpleasant it can feel to go against the grain, even when you are on the right track. When you have no assurances, it is scary and difficult. It tests you. In this instance, I was ultimately successful, but that's not how I felt while doing it. I want you to know that in advance, so that the feeling doesn't catch you unawares. Most people don't try what you are now doing. Most people think it's too much or too hard. And that's entrepreneurship. You have decided that you have the right answer, and now you are setting out boldly. As you go along, with knots in your stomach and sweat on your skin, no one is going to assure you that you are on the right track. No one will calm your nerves. They may even think you're quite mad and prod at you with their doubts. Rich isn't normal. Remember that. It feels different, and the path feels strange and lonely. Yet it is the path. You are on the right track. How do we know? Because the majority of the world's millionaires and billionaires are first-generation business owners. They've walked this difficult path too, and it likely tested their nerves just the same. Do you feel you need permission to be different? Okay, Here it is. I grant you that permission. You are free. Now walk boldly onto that path. Write that backwards essay with conviction and do the things that others aren't. The tangle of insecurity and emotions feels like an obstacle, but as author Ryan Holiday put it, the obstacle is the way. Your willingness to face and push through that difficulty is precisely what will set you apart from the median average. Rich is different, and you will require the tenacity and courage to live that difference.